Thanks, Lacey. First up, I just want to give a shout out to my team back in Sydney who are hopefully watching this on the live stream. So I'm just using this, I presume. Straight into it. So today I'm presenting to you on our insect farming food scraps processing trial. Just to start off with, I'd like to give you a bit of background on our food scraps recycling service for a bit of context. So the City of Sydney have been running a food scraps recycling service with our residents for almost 6 years. Currently, the service is available to over 1,000 houses and around 350 apartment buildings. And that service is available to around 17% of the total households in our local government area. The service has been a great success. The reason why we tested a food organic service over a FOGO service was because 80% of the residents in our LGA live in apartment buildings and they have little to no garden organic waste, so there's no demand for a garden organic service. And also, we've identified that with a source-separated food organics stream, you can achieve better environmental outcomes using the right processing technology, and there are more potential processing options available. So in March this year, our council resolved to roll out a FO service to all of our residents to meet the requirements of the state government FOGO mandate. And our goal for that rollout will be to achieve the best environmental outcomes from this new service. So what are the drivers for our insect farming trial? So because the city was planning to roll out a food organic service, we knew that we needed to better understand processing options for food organics. We have done some greenhouse gas modelling of different service options and different processing technologies, and that has indicated that anaerobic digestion and insect farming can deliver significant greenhouse gas emission reductions. We've trialled anaerobic digestion already. Our initial processing contract for our food scrap service was with Earth Power, but unfortunately Earth Power had to close, and since then we've been looking for other alternatives. Insect farming offers multiple benefits, but we recognised that it was not well tested with residential food organics, and so there was an opportunity to try and test this technology further. And then we got good support from our Lord Mayor, who put forward a resolution to council to conduct a trial. And so our insect farming trial was born. So the trial is a New South Wales first trial where we're processing all of the food organics from our food scraps service using insect farming technology. We've partnered with tech startup and food waste innovators GoTerra, and we're running a 12-month processing trial. It started in January this year and will conclude in January next year. GoTerra have built a processing module specifically for the trial in our own LGA at a waste facility in Alexandria. The objectives of the project are, of course, to assess the feasibility of this processing technology as a long-term solution for the city's food organics, but also to address and identify any operational issues and determine triple bottom line impacts. So for those of you that are not quite sure what insect farming is, it's basically the use of black soldier fly larvae or maggots to process food scraps. The GoTerra solution uses semi-autonomous units called MIBs, which I believe is modular. There we go, thank you, Justin. Modular infrastructure for biological services. So, which is essentially a shipping container with robotic technology in it. So the larvae are put into the shipping container in trays and they are fed food scraps over a period of around 10 to 12 days. On the last feeding day, the contents of the MIB are harvested and the larvae manure and larvae are removed. The larvae manure gets converted to fertiliser and the larvae are converted to an animal feed. So just to let you know what the benefits of insect farming are, the first one, which I've already touched on, is the beneficial offtake. So there's two products that insect farming produces. One is the larvae manure, which is called frass, and that's a really nutrient-rich fertiliser that can be used on agricultural crops and garden beds. And the second product is an insect protein, which can be used in animal feed, for poultry, for fish, and also even in pet food. Insect farming delivers excellent greenhouse gas savings, and that's because the insect protein replaces soy-derived proteins, which are quite carbon intensive to produce. Insect farming is also very circular. The food waste is processed and creates products that can be used to generate more food. And insect farming, or particularly the GoTerra solution, is modular, which means it only requires a fairly small space to set up, and that then means that you've got the potential to locate it locally and in urban areas, and by comparison to other technologies, there's lower capital setup costs. Sorry, I forgot to show you the chickens moving there. I have included a project timeline in the presentation, but I'm not going to go into any detail here other than to say that it's taken us about 3 years to get the project up and running from our initial site visit to GoTerra in Barangaroo and the idea to run the trial to actually starting the trial. And the main impetus that we got for running the trial was the support that we got from our mayor, who put the resolution to council to go ahead with a trial or investigate a trial. So now I'll just take you through a few of the different project stages that I think maybe people will find interesting and talk in a bit more detail about those. So the search for a site, that was managed, of course, by GoTerra. It took around 8 months. Our brief to GoTerra was to try to find a site for the processing module that's as close to our LGA as possible and with a travel distance of less than 25 kilometres. So GoTerra investigated many options, including a city-owned parcel of vacant land that we have. They also spoke to a transfer station near Ryde, they spoke to Bingo about different options, and they spoke to many other industry players. During this process, it was fairly evident that if we wanted to get the trial up and running quite quickly, it would be best to co-locate the new processing module at an already licensed waste facility. And after much back and forth, GoTerra landed on a partnership with Bingo at their Alexandria recycling facility. And I should just point out here that the contract for the site is between Bingo and GoTerra, and we, the City of Sydney, have a contract directly with GoTerra. So contract development, we didn't have any precedent or template to work from, so we needed to develop a bespoke contract for the trial. This relied heavily on the expertise and time of the city's in-house lawyers for drafting and preparation of the contract. We had some constraints for the city as a local government entity, but the contract that we landed on covers the establishment of the project, the services provided, the service levels, and also the reporting requirements, as well as detailing roles and responsibilities for both parties, the risk allocation, and of course the trial nature of the project. Planning approvals and licensing. So as Bingo were the owner of the site which we were co-locating on, they managed the planning approvals and licensing components. Both of these project stages took around 8 months. So for planning approvals, Bingo had to engage directly with the city's planning department, completely independently of the project team, the trial project team. Our planning department considered the activity consistent with existing site approvals, and so no further development application or amendments were required. As far as licensing goes, both GoTerra and Bingo approached the New South Wales early on with our idea for this trial project, and the EPA were very supportive of the project right from the start. Bingo applied for a variation to their existing environmental protection licence to be able to receive putrescible waste on the site, and that was approved. So construction and commissioning, that took around 8 months, which is actually quite a rapid period. So for construction, a hard stand base was laid and then a dome cover was built to house the processing equipment. The MIBs and feeding system were partially built in the GoTerra headquarters at ACT in Hume, and then that was then shipped to the site and the rest of the system was built there on site. GoTerra have invested quite heavily in odour management, and some of the odour management measures include negative pressure in the MIBs, carbon filters, a demister and deodorising system, adaptation of the site layout so that the airflow management is optimised, and a strict daily cleaning and process discipline. And as far as commissioning goes, the commissioning isn't just mechanical because we're using live animals in the process, so the biological system also needed to thrive, and that meant ensuring a optimal environment for the insects with precise temperature and humidity levels, and also installing a comprehensive monitoring system. GoTerra used an iterative-driven approach for testing and introducing the insects and the food waste in phases, and gradually ramping that up to ensure optimal performance. So how the system works. So this slide just shows a process flow of how the system works. So food gets tipped into the tipping bunker on the top left there, and then a GoTerra technician uses a skid steer to move the food from the bunker to the feed-in hopper. The feed-in hopper delivers the food slowly onto a conveyor belt, and there a service technician manually removes gross contamination and also does some removal of compostable bags. Once the food gets to the top of the conveyor, it gets dropped into the depackager. The depackager removes remaining compostable bags and other packaging. And then the remaining food gets put into the macerator tank where it gets mashed up. And the mashed up food gets moved to the storage tank, and gradually the food waste storage tank feeds the food paste to the larvae in the MIBs using robotic technology. So just some initial results. So since we've been running the trial in just start of January this year, we've processed around 165 tonnes of food scraps through the MIBs. We've also generated approximately 37 tonnes of frass and around 7 tonnes of insect protein, and all of this has saved around 282 tonnes of carbon emissions. So the burning question with many people will be, well, how much did this trial cost? Obviously, we can't tell you the specifics because it's commercial in confidence, but what I can say is that contract costs were made up of a few different components. Firstly, we did pay a small contribution to the capital works setup costs, and then on a monthly basis, we pay GoTerra a MIB rental fee. We also pay the processing fee or gate fee on $1 per tonne basis, and we pay for contamination, all of the contamination that's removed on $1 per tonne basis as well. So there's a real incentive for us to keep the contamination down. I can also say that the costs that we are paying are quite comparable to other organics processing technologies, and they're not prohibitive. So now some fun stuff. I'm not getting any sound out of this. This is a...
Yes, she was looking for a place to lay her maggots. Oh, she was... Yes, she was... Oh, she was looking for a place to...
We did quite a bit of media a couple of months ago to introduce the trial to our residents and to announce it to the public, and that was just one of the videos that we used on Facebook, TikTok and Instagram, and that got 13,000 impressions. Sorry, backwards. Another thing that we're doing as part of the trial is testing the frass in our parks and gardens. So at the moment we're doing a fertiliser experiment at our Sydney City farm using different types of fertiliser, including the frass. And when that's completed, we'll do some visual assessment of the trees and measurements to assess the results. We're also planning to use the FRAS on some of our urban garden beds soon. Oh, sorry, I keep slipping ahead. So challenges, there are two main challenges that we've come up against with the trial. The first one is the compostable bags. So you would have heard me say that the compostable bags are removed in the process. The maggots can't eat the compostable bags, they just eat around them. So that's unfortunate, so we have to remove them. And the depackaging unit was included as part of the process, and the intention was that the depackager would remove the compostable bags, but due to the nature of the bags, they tend to get a little bit caught and tangled in the depackager, so GoTerra have had to introduce some manual removal of the compostable bags, which is not ideal, but they are working on other solutions to solve that issue. Also, just to let you know, we're also doing some trials on composting of the compostable bags, just separately. Our first initial trial using like an open windrow composting process has shown that there's still quite a bit of residue of bags left after composting for 10 to 12 weeks. So we're working on other options and looking at other ways that we might be able to manage those. The other challenge that we've had is the use of live animals. So in high summer, when we had some really, really hot days, we had a couple of crawl-off events where the maggots were moving out of their trays and not feeling so comfortable, and that reduces the processing efficiency. And GoTerra were well aware of that and dealt with that quite quickly. Also, there have been a couple of incidences of low egg supply. So our successes, there have been quite a few. From an operational point of view, the ability for us to tip locally saves a lot of time, transport miles, and also transport costs. We're also getting some great detailed contamination data and photographs due to the reporting requirements we've included in the contract. So this is helping us to inform our contamination education and also our contamination management strategies. And also GoTerra have been extremely agile and transparent and open and really responsive to challenges and requests. From an environmental point of view, we're achieving good high recovery rates around the 90% mark, and we have had really low odour, which is just amazing because the facility isn't fully enclosed, and we are in an urban area, so we do have neighbours all around us. So we've had no complaints at all from external receptors. And from a social point of view, we've had really great response from the public to the trial, really positive and supportive. So just to conclude, we're almost halfway through the trial, so we're getting to the point where we need to start doing a proper evaluation of the results and determining whether this technology is going to be feasible as an ongoing basis, and we need to include how we're going to possibly scale the tech up to accommodate all of our tonnes when we roll out our FO service. And then we also need to work out what our procurement pathways are in light of all of the local government probity rules. And that is the end. I'm taking questions later. Thank you.